And even we've, catch ourselves all the time. In fact, just the other week, we were interviewed on somebody else's podcast, and I found myself saying, oh, this is so exciting. I've got chicken skin. And then I changed it to goosebumps. And I thought, well, that means the same thing, doesn't it? We know of what chicken skin and goosebumps look like because we've pulled the animal's feathers out. So
right.
I think even if we're vegan and we're working in this field of vegan advocacy or activism, and yet we still find ourselves saying these expressions, and that blows my mind.
The conditioning runs deep.
Very deep.
Runs really deep. And, so yes, and there are expressions that include animals that are very positive. And so I think the idea, again, is to make sure that our language is reflecting how we really feel about animals. Mm-hmm. And so we have very deep relationships with animals. So there are plenty of expressions we can use that aren't derogatory against animals. But those that are, that's what we need to consider, because not only does it reinforce our speciesism, it reinforces our violence against animals. It also reinforces it, in our minds, but it also reinforces it in our culture. So when you say goosebumps, I could argue that, and I don't, what was the other one? Chicken
skin.
I think that must be an Australian
Okay.
Because we don't say that here. But goosebumps we do say. And I think, truly, yes, we do know what their skin underneath looks like because we've plucked them. And birds do shed as well.
That's true.
So there is an argument to be made for, well, we can see what their skin looks like under the feathers because they also do shed their feathers.
I feel better now.
Not everyone, yeah, good. So not everyone is, but yeah, here, one that I do hear a lot from vegans, and again, this comes from a very unconscious, innocent place, is when people talk about pigging out or eating like a pig.
Oh,
That's the one that I tend to say, oh, let's maybe eat like a glutton, because, right, or just stuff myself or what have you. But, and pigs do eat a lot. I'm not going to deny it. And so do humans. So we could easily just say eat like a human.
Yeah. That's true. We like to, we've changed a lot of the expressions, haven't we?
We have. So, for example, instead of saying a bird in the hand is better than two in the bush, we'll say a nectarine in the hand is better than two in the bush, for example.
Yeah. Or a can of peaches instead of a can of worms, or and when we use that kind of language with non-vegans, it always kind of catches them, and you see the little cogs in the mind start ticking over and thinking.
Exactly, like instead of cold turkey, we'll say cold vegan turkey, for example. Yeah.
Cold vegan turkey. Yeah, it's one of my favorite things to do is to change the expressions and see people's reactions, because it really is when they realize what they're saying. They don't, we're, as you said, we're doing this very unconsciously. So most people are not doing it because they really want to kill two birds with a stone. They don't really want to do that. As soon as you reflect it back to them, they go, because I'll say cut two carrots with one knife. And they go, what did you just say? And I said, yeah, well, we don't want to, kill birds. And they're like, oh my God, you're right. And then they start, just like you did, they start thinking of all of the idioms where it's really violent against animals. And that's what's so beautiful about it, is just by us changing it, it reflects back what the violent one is. I actually forget sometimes. I go, wait, what was the original? Because I'm so used to now saying the alternative that I'm glad it's become, commonplace. So there's hope for all of us.
Yeah.
I think the one that's really fun is muscle. Comes from the word moose, a Latin word that meant little mouse. And so no one's really sure how that came about, but it seems to have to do with the movement of a little creature under a blanket. You would imagine like a little mouse. And if you flex your biceps, you can kind of see a little mouse appear, like you could see a bump appear. So muscle actually comes from mouse. Hippocampus in our brain actually comes from the word hippo, which is Greek for horse, because an anatomist named it that because they thought the area